Hey guys, tonight we slip quietly into the cluttered corners of ancient Rome, not the marble forums or the imperial villas, but somewhere a little more ordinary. Picture this: the muffled clatter of wooden sandals, the soft hiss of oil lamps, the smell of baking bread, and maybe a bit of something less poetic wafting up from the communal latrine. We're climbing 5 flights of creaky stairs to the top of a Roman apartment block, or insula, where the ceilings are low, the walls are thin, and you'll be lucky if your neighbor isn't fermenting something questionable in the hallway. You're about to live one full, mildly uncomfortable, occasionally hilarious, and completely unremarkable day as a very average Roman apartment dweller. You probably won't survive this life long term. By the way, fires, collapsing buildings, or infections from communal sponges, take your pick. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with where you're listening from and what time it is. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You open your eyes to darkness, not the full kind, more the dusty, half-lit haze of a Roman dawn filtering through a linen curtain so thin it's basically a suggestion. A cock crows somewhere, not yours because who has space for a rooster up here, and a chorus of creaks and murmurs begins to rise from the wooden floorboards and plaster-thin walls. Someone in the next unit is already grinding grain, and it sounds like they're doing it with enthusiasm or vengeance. You lie on a straw-stuffed mattress that pokes you in at least 3 places and debate whether you want to step onto the cold floor just yet. The air is cool, which is rare, and you know that by midday it'll feel like living inside a baked amphora. Still, the city waits, and the landlord definitely doesn't cover sick days. Your ceiling is a lattice of crooked beams blackened by lamp smoke and cooking fumes. Rome's insulae are notorious for being flammable, drafty, and crowded. Historians still argue whether these top-floor units were considered affordable or just death traps for the desperate. You know where you stand. You've memorized every creak in the floor, every crack in the wall, every corner where the rats like to gossip. You're practically part of the building. You stretch carefully. You once dislocated your shoulder trying to do that too quickly in this tiny room. Your tunic, a basic affair of coarse wool, lies folded at the foot of the bed. You pick it up and give it a shake. A small lizard falls out. Good morning to him, too. As your feet hit the cold stone floor, you shuffle toward the wooden shutter and ease it open. Outside, the sky is a muted pink, and the smell of baking bread is already mixing with the far less charming tang of refuse and chamber pots. You look out not over a scenic courtyard or green field, but directly into someone else's window, where an older man is clipping his toenails over a chamber pot. Urban intimacy. You take a breath. The day begins. The noises below swell merchants barking their wares, children running barefoot, a distant street performer tuning a lyre badly. You glance toward the doorway, just a curtain on a rope, and hear your neighbor's child yelling about a lost goat. Not again. Your belongings are meager: a 3-legged stool, a cracked oil lamp, 1 chipped amphora, and a wooden chest containing the few clothes and coins you haven't already traded for food or rent. But your prized possession, a small bronze amulet shaped like a phallus. Not for any particular affection, just for protection. The gods work in mysterious and vaguely inappropriate ways. The fire in your corner brazier has long since gone out, and you can't risk relighting it without someone banging on the wall. Ever since that one guy 2 doors down set his mattress alight trying to warm soup, everyone's been on edge. The landlord, who probably hasn't set foot in this building in 3 years, has strong opinions about cooking hazards, but no intention of fixing the cracks in the wall where the rain seeps through. Typical. You light your oil lamp, its flame sputtering as if it too is reluctant to start the day. The scent of olive oil smoke fills the air, combining with the remnants of last night's fish stew to create a uniquely Roman perfume that would probably clear a room in modern times. Down below, someone yells something about a missing sandal and a dishonest baker. Classic. You fish a crust of bread from your storage jar and gnaw on it thoughtfully. It's hard enough to chip a tooth, but it's food. You wash it down with a few sips of sour wine, more vinegar than vino, and mentally prepare for the morning routine. Not bathing, of course, that comes later, and not at home. Before leaving your room, you reach for the sliver of soap made with ash and animal fat. It smells like defeat, but works. Marginally. You tuck it into your cloth pouch. Bathhouse or bust. As the sounds of life rise with the sun, the apartment feels less like a room and more like a pressure cooker. The walls amplify every whisper, every cough, every nocturnal activity. You've learned to sleep through arguments in at least 3 languages and the persistent thumping of someone's creative pottery hobby. One last look at your little world mattress, amulet, sour wine, and a room so small your elbows have developed spatial awareness. You tie your tunic with a worn leather belt, sling your pouch over your shoulder, and pull aside the curtain. Time to brave the stairwell. But that's a horror for the next few minutes. You step into the hallway and immediately regret it. The air here is thicker, warmer, somehow carrying the scent of damp plaster, wet wool, and a suspicious hint of old garlic. The corridor is dim, the only light coming from the tiny window at the far end, where the morning sun slices in like a lazy dagger. You move quietly, so as not to wake the one neighbor who works nights shoveling ash at the public crematorium and gets particularly cranky about early morning footfalls. To your left, someone set a bucket outside their doorway. You know better than to peek inside. The last time you did, it was full of small bones and what may have been a homemade eel stew or a curse jar. Hard to say. You turn toward the stairwell, but first, the ritual, morning hygiene. You duck back into your room and fill a small basin with the last of yesterday's water. It's tepid, gritty, and smells faintly of iron, but you splash it on your face anyway. The Romans aren't known for luxurious morning showers, especially not on the 5th floor. Baths come later. In the afternoon if you're lucky, or if your coin pouch isn't feeling thin. And today, well, it definitely is feeling thin. You rub the rough wool of your tunic over your cheeks in a half-hearted attempt to dry off, and consider brushing your teeth. Then again, your last bristle brush disintegrated, and the mint twig stand at the forum hiked their prices. So, you swish some of the sour wine left in your cup around your mouth and call it rustic freshness. A scratching noise alerts you to movement behind the wall. It could be your neighbor's dog. It could also be a very bold rat. Either way, you pick up your sandals and slip them on left one first, like always. Superstition. You once put the right one on first and twisted your ankle stepping over a drunk courier. You tighten your belt, which holds everything of value, your little pouch with coins, soap sliver, and the lucky bone charm your aunt swore kept away boils. She also swore that wearing red linen on a Wednesday would summon dreams of fish, so her credibility is, shall we say, varied. Then, there's the hair. It's a mess. But gel. Only the rich can afford olive oil for both cooking and grooming. You splash water over it and attempt to flatten it with your hand. It springs back up. You shrug. It's Rome. Most people are too distracted by open sewers and political graffiti to care about your coiffure. Your neighbor, Claudia, pulls aside her own curtain just as you approach the stairwell. She's already dressed, hair in tight braids, holding a sloshing pot of what might be fermented lentils. She nods. Early today. She grunts. You nod back. Goat, get loose again, jump the railing, she says flatly, headed toward the bakery. Again, you offer a sympathetic oof and move past her down the first flight of stairs. She follows, her pot sloshing dangerously with each step. The stairwell is a tight spiral of wood and brick, patched where it's cracked and suspiciously soft in places. The handrail wobbles. One of the steps groans with the same pitch every time someone steps on it, like a disgruntled ghost. The air thickens as you descend. Each floor down is a world away from the one above. On the 4th level, someone's frying onions, which momentarily convinces your stomach that breakfast might be possible. On the third, a woman leans out of her door arguing loudly with a man about stolen laundry cords. On the second, a teenage boy is trying to drag a live chicken by the leg down the stairs, and it is not cooperating. You make eye contact. Neither of you says a word. The first floor is where the real action happens. The landlord's nephew lives here, and somehow his room always smells like roses and clean sand. You hate him a little bit. He waves as you pass. You pretend not to see him. Out on the street, the city yawns to life. The stairwell empties into a tight alley that smells like wet limestone and overripe olives. You duck to avoid a laundry line and catch a splash of something on your shoulder. Let's just say you hope it was water. This is a city where people throw their night waste out the window with a lazy look out below. You've learned to keep your ears open and your reflexes sharp. Before you can even contemplate food, you've got to deal with the tunic issue. This one's coarse, scratchy, and pulling weirdly under your left armpit. You try to adjust it without flashing too much thigh to the baker's wife across the way, but there's only so much you can do when your clothing has the structural integrity of a potato sack. Still, the tunic beats what some of your neighbors are wearing. A man shuffles past in a toga so filthy it might stand up on its own. He smells like garum and lost hope, but at least he's trying. Historians still argue whether poor Romans ever wore togas for real or just threw on what was available for festivals and court appearances. You own half a toga, and it's currently doubling as a curtain. You reach into your pouch and feel around for a spare denarius. You find one, miraculously, next to a hardened fig that's probably been in there since the Saturnalia feast. Score. Now begins the balancing act, looking presentable enough to pass as a decent worker, without appearing wealthy enough to mug. You strike your usual look-reluctant laborer with just enough sass to be memorable, just poor enough to be ignored by thieves. Perfect. As you prepare to make your way through the alley to the broader city, you glance back up at the insula. Its red brick facade is cracked, streaked with soot and old rain stains, and utterly indifferent to your existence. And yet, for better or worse, it's home. Somewhere above you, a loud crash rings out. Claudia's goat, presumably. You sigh, tug at the hem of your tunic, and step into the day. Your sandals slap softly against the uneven cobblestones as you shuffle down the alley, clutching your pouch like it owes you something. The sun's barely peaked above the rooftops, but the streets are already humming. Rome never really sleeps. It just mutters for a few hours and then starts yelling again. Your destination breakfast, or something passable as such. You make your way to a nearby Popina, a little street-side food stall where the menu hasn't changed in decades, and the flies have probably formed a union. It's wedged between a dye shop that smells like crushed snails and a scribe's booth that's been closed since before Tiberius had a midlife crisis. The Popina's cook, a rotund man with 3 fingers and no patience, gives you a squinting nod as you approach. You sit on a bench so low it makes your knees groan and hand over your coin. In return, you get what's optimistically called panis bread, so dry you could use it to exfoliate, and a small bowl of beans swimming in olive oil that may have seen better days. Or weeks. The beans taste mostly of salt and ashes, but they're warm, and that's something. Next to you, 2 men in tunics are deep in conversation about whether the local baker is adulterating his flour with sawdust again. One swears he found a splinter in his crust. The other argues it was probably a toothpick. Neither seems particularly upset they're just passing the time until the wine kicks in. You pick at your bread, soak it in the oil, and chew slowly. A small rat darts out from beneath the stall, pauses to judge your life choices, then scurries off. You raise your bowl slightly in salute. Touche, little guy. The cook sets down a cup of wine. It's sharp, vaguely vinegary, and has a bit of a murky swirl going on near the bottom. You squint into it, either sediment or a bug, maybe both. You drink it anyway. It's not about the taste, it's about ritual. Romans didn't really do breakfast, at least not in the grand style. Ientaculum was a modest affair, often skipped altogether, but you've learned to eat when food's available, and more importantly, when it's cheap. Across the alley, a woman shouts down from her window, tossing a small bag to the boy below. He catches it, opens it, frowns, and shouts back, "This isn't my laundry." The woman yells something unprintable, and a second bag follows, this one hitting him square in the face. Breakfast theater, you shift on your bench. A splinter jabs you somewhere unfortunate. The cook glances over. "Bread good?" You nod. "It's bread." He shrugs. "You want honey next time? Marry a senator?" Tache again. Behind you, a graffiti-covered wall lists everything from philosophical musings to anatomical sketches best left unexplored. Someone's drawn a crude caricature of the emperor again. Every week it gets painted over. Every week it reappears. There's a rumor that it's actually the work of a local magistrate blowing off steam. Historians still argue whether graffiti was political protest or just bored artistry with a sharp stylus and too much wine. You wipe your fingers on the hem of your tunic and nod a quick thanks to the cook, who grunts back, "You're not exactly friends, but he hasn't charged you double yet," which in Rome means you're practically brothers. As you walk away, your stomach warm and your breath probably a biohazard. You pass by a small group gathered around a makeshift stall, a woman selling amulets protection against curses, bad breath, and romantic incompetence. You're tempted, but you remember the lucky bone in your pouch and decide you're covered. The crowd at the stall murmurs about a fire that broke out 2 blocks away the night before. Apparently an oil lamp tipped over during a dice game and took out half a roof. No one was killed, thankfully, though a cat is missing. The neighbor insists it was a sacred cat of Isis. The baker says it was a menace with fleas. There's already talk of raising funds for a new roof via a street performance. Rome, where your home burns and someone turns it into dinner theater. You pass the open doors of a nearby taberna, smoke curling out lazily, voices rising in animated conversation. A man stumbles out, clearly having started his day early, and grins at you with all 6 of his teeth. You look like a man who knows how to lose money at dice. He calls out, "I am," you reply honestly, and keep walking. You reach a small public fountain and pause to splash some water on your face. It's cold, clear, and probably safe, at least for now. Rome's aqueducts are marvels of engineering, snaking through mountains and tunnels to bring water to the city. But even marvels get muddy when someone bribes the maintenance workers to tap a private line for their bathhouse. Again, you wipe your face with your sleeve and glance down at your reflection. Not bad, considering a few sleep creases, tunic already dust-stained, and the wine breath of a centurion on leave. But passable. Then you hear it, the unmistakable clatter of hooves and the frantic cries of a street vendor. You step aside just in time as a donkey cart barrels through the alley, overloaded with amphorae and pulled by 2 mules who clearly skipped breakfast. The driver shouts something obscene, possibly at you, possibly at the gods. You hold up your hands in mock surrender, just another near-death morning. As the dust settles, you make your way toward the main street. A few more errands before work, maybe a peek at the Forum, and if you're lucky, a moment of peace before the city fully wakes and starts demanding everything from everyone. You take a last bite of the stale bread in your pocket, now slightly warm from your body heat. It's no feast, but it's fuel. And in a city like Rome, that's enough to get you to the next hour. The stairwell is bad enough when you're climbing down, but climbing up, that's when it reveals its true, malevolent spirit. You've just returned from the market well. The idea of the market. In reality, you managed to buy a few shriveled olives and a hunk of mystery cheese before a sandal vendor picked a fight with a pickpocket and knocked over 3 fruit stalls. Classic chaos. Now, you're hauling yourself and your modest groceries back up the insula's stairwell, one achy, uneven step at a time. The first floor is fine, spacious-ish. The scent of roasted barley lingers pleasantly in the air, and someone has a mosaic on their floor, which feels like a flex. This is where the wealthier tenants live, the ones who can afford 2-room apartments, regular bread, and privacy. You pass by quickly, out of sheer socioeconomic guilt. The second floor is noisier. A baby's crying. A woman is singing a song about a fishwife and a stolen sandal. Someone is playing a reed flute very, very badly. You step around a cracked jar of pickled something that's been there for 3 days. The smell confirms this. By the third floor, your legs are protesting, loudly. You pause to catch your breath. A kid runs past you barefoot, clutching a wooden sword and wearing a cape made from a curtain. He's yelling, "I am Romulus," and you don't doubt it for a second. You give him a nod as he charges into battle with a broom. The stairs get steeper now, tighter, darker. It's like the insula doesn't want you to go higher. You grab the railing, which is a generous term for the splintery length of wood bolted to the wall, and haul yourself up. Fourth floor. This is where things start to get real. You hear an argument through one of the doors. Someone's shouting in Oscan, and someone else is shouting back in Latin. There's a brief pause, then a loud crash, followed by what can only be described as a goat-related noise. Historians still argue whether multilingual screaming was a feature or a bug of Roman apartment life. You're inclined to say feature. Very immersive. You sidestep a sleeping man in the hallway, possibly drunk, possibly napping, possibly dead. You don't check. There's a soft snoring sound, so you feel morally clear. Someone's cooking lentils. The smell is good, earthy, familiar. You think longingly of your own empty stove, but your brazier's out of fuel again, and you've got 2 small logs left under the bed. Those are for emergencies or cold nights when you can't feel your fingers. You shift the sack of groceries from one hand to the other and start the final climb. The 5th floor is a different world entirely. The stairs groan beneath your weight. You pass a bucket placed directly under a leaky patch of ceiling that always drips after it rains. It hasn't rained in a week, but the bucket's still full. Disturbing. Your neighbor Claudia is sitting on her stool outside her room, sharpening a knife with alarming focus. You give her a polite nod. She doesn't nod back, but she grunts, which is progress. Her goat is tied nearby, chewing something that may have once been a sandal. "Still missing your curtain, you ask?" Claudia eyes you. "You took it, I wouldn't survive the goat," she grunts again and goes back to her blade. You finally reach your own door, a curtain with a small wax seal on one corner. Not for security, just to remind you which side has fewer holes. You step inside your room, setting your bag down with a sigh. Every bone in your body complains. Your sandals are dusty. Your tunic is damp with sweat. And you're pretty sure something bit you on the ankle around the 2nd floor. You pour yourself a little water and drink it slowly, watching the late morning sunlight flicker through your cracked shutter. The room feels warmer already. It always does. This time of day turns into a small oven with furniture. You lie back on your mattress, just for a second. The familiar crunch of straw under your back, the faint aroma of oil and dust. You think about the stairwell. You think about the fact that you're going to have to climb it again later. You consider staying put for the rest of your life and letting Rome just move on without you. But someone outside your door yells, "Is this your amphora? It rolled down 3 floors." You groan. Probably the stairwell giveth and taketh away. You drag yourself back up, peek outside, and sure enough, a jug, chipped but intact, wobbling dangerously at the edge of a stair. You retrieve it, bow slightly to your mystery deliverer, and bring it inside. The heat builds. You open the window just a bit, hoping for a breeze. Instead, you get a blast of scent baking bread, horse dung, fried cheese, and something fishy in a bad way. The layers of the Roman air bouquet, not pleasant, not awful, just Rome. Somewhere far below, a musician starts playing a lyre. Badly. Your head throbs, your stomach growls again, confused by your earlier breakfast. You consider opening the cheese, then remember you didn't actually ask what kind of cheese it was, and decide to wait until desperation overrides common sense. The stairwell creaks again. Someone's coming up. You hold your breath. Is it the landlord, a debt collector? The woman who thinks you borrowed her broom last Saturnalia. It's a child, the same one from earlier, Romulus. He's holding a stick and now has a new curtain cape. Claudia's curtain. You make a note to not get involved. You flop back down on your mattress, arm flung over your eyes, and let the creaking of the floorboards and the humming of the city below lull you into something between rest and resignation. The stairwell has done its worst. For now, the heat outside has bloomed into full-blown Roman oppression by the time you step into the street again. You squint up at the sky, it's blindingly bright, a sheet of white haze over terracotta rooftops, punctuated only by the occasional seagull or slightly confused pigeon. Your tunic already clings to your back. The stone walls radiate heat like they're trying to cook you from both sides. And yet, the city doesn't stop. It never does. You pull your satchel higher onto your shoulder and join the slow trickle of pedestrians heading down the alley toward the main thoroughfare. Mud sticks to your sandals where the public fountains have overflowed, mixing with discarded fig skins, stray feathers, and what you're praying was just yesterday's wine. One wrong step and you'll be scraping something unspeakable off your foot all afternoon. You pass a man yelling at a cart. Not the driver, the actual cart. It seems one of the wheels is bent, and the cart refuses to cooperate. The driver sits nearby eating a boiled egg, completely unbothered. This is not his first wheel-related existential crisis. Your goal is simple, reach your day's work. But in Rome, even a short trip can turn into a minor odyssey. You dodge a small parade of sheep while they're in the middle of the street is anyone's guess. A small boy smacks one with a stick to move it along. The sheep gives him a look that suggests they've met before. You turn the corner and nearly collide with a vendor balancing a crate of amphorae on his head. He shouts something you don't catch, but based on his hand gestures, it's not a compliment. You apologize and keep moving, past a man offering very fresh eel from a barrel. The eel is, indeed, still moving. Your workplace varies like most Romans without guild ties. You take what you can get. Today, you're heading toward a building site on the edge of the Subura district, the lively, chaotic underbelly of Rome. A few other laborers join you as you walk, including a man who carries his trowel like a weapon and a woman who keeps cursing under her breath about a broken ladder. The group of you weave through a market square where merchants shout about dates, nuts, and questionable spices. Someone's selling wigs made from imported Gallic hair. You linger for half a second. It's blonde, probably cursed, and definitely out of your price range. You finally arrive at the site, a half-finished warehouse. Piles of bricks lie stacked beside a scaffold that looks like it's been repaired with good intentions and rope. The foreman, a hulking man with one eyebrow and a nose like a badly forged helmet, grunts at you as you enter. You're late. You're not. But arguing with the foreman is like debating a wall. You might feel righteous, but you're still going to be exhausted and slightly bruised by the end. So you nod, grab a shovel, and get to work. You start clearing rubble from yesterday's demolition. Dust clouds rise into the air, sticking to your skin, your tongue, your thoughts. Every time you inhale, it's like snorting Pompeii. A few bricks later, your hands are raw and your shoulders ache, but the rhythm settles in. Lift, carry, stack, repeat. The job has no poetry, but it pays. Mostly. On good weeks, you overhear two workers arguing about whether the new temple nearby will be dedicated to Apollo or Minerva. One insists it's Apollo. Look at the columns. While the other claims Minerva because of the owl carvings, historians still argue whether such symbols actually indicated patron gods or were just decorative flourishes ordered by wealthy donors trying to impress someone. At mid-morning, the foreman gives a grunt that everyone understands means break. You sit on a pile of lumber and sip lukewarm water from a shared skin. A fellow worker offers you a fig, which you accept with a nod and a muttered thanks. You bite into it sweet, sticky, a rare moment of sensory joy amid the grime. A conversation starts nearby about the best place to get sandals repaired, and someone brings up the infamous one-eyed cobbler near the baths of Titus who supposedly uses catgut for stitching. You try not to think too hard about that, given that you bought your sandals second-hand. Just as you're about to lean back and let your muscles complain in peace, A minor commotion breaks out at the edge of the site. A well-dressed man, robe too clean, sandals too shiny, is pointing at the construction and ranting about improper dimensions. The foreman grumbles, wipes his forehead, and trudges over. Turns out, this man is from the city inspector's office, or says he is. There's no badge, no scroll, just indignation and the smell of expensive oil. You and your fellow workers all share the same thought: this guy's here for a bribe. Sure enough, 5 minutes later, he's gone pouch heavier. Complaints magically resolved. The foreman shrugs, spits in the dust, and tells everyone to get back to work. You do, because there's nothing else to do. By noon, your arms are trembling, your tunic is soaked, and your back is inventing new ways to hurt. The sun is high now, and the shadows you were relying on have all vanished. Someone passes around a jar of garum-slicked anchovies. You decline politely. You still remember the last time. Some scars are emotional and intestinal. As the workday drags on, your eyes drift toward the street. The city is alive out there, noisy, foul, crowded, and weirdly beautiful. Rome isn't clean. It isn't gentle, but it pulses. It breathes. It yells at you for looking at it wrong, then feeds you cheese and curses your landlord. You hoist one more load of bricks and tell yourself you'll stop soon. Just a few more, one more stretch. Then it's off to the baths or the latrines, if nothing else. You can already feel the dust sticking to your skin like shame after a night of bad decisions. One more shovel, one more minute, one more hour in the eternal hum of Rome. You've survived the morning shift without collapsing, losing a limb, or punching the foreman, a personal best. Now, as you trudge back toward the Subura's central street, the sounds of the city rise to greet you, more aggressive now, louder, like Rome's decided it's had enough decorum for one day. You pass a pair of fishmongers in full-blown verbal combat over who stole whose salted mackerel. Each has a different version of the story, and both involve a suspiciously identical cat. You slow down, not out of concern, but because watching people argue with raw fish in their hands is better than theater. As you move along, the crowd thickens. Voices bounce off the walls in a dozen dialects: Latin, Greek, Punic, and something you think might just be passionate humming. This is Rome's real rhythm: street sellers yelling, sandals slapping, coins clinking, pigs squealing, someone's trying to walk one on a rope, and that one guy who's always yelling about Neptune's revenge. You've never gotten the full story, but he's very consistent. The stone-paved street vibrates underfoot with the thud of carts and hooves. You step aside as a water seller pushes a barrel balanced on a creaky wheelbarrow. Aqua cold as the Alps, he calls. You resist pointing out that you saw him fill it from the public fountain that smells suspiciously like cabbage. Then the musicians start. First, a girl on a pan flute, squealing high notes like a bird that's had too much honey. Next, a trio of young men with lyres, badly out of sync, playing something that may once have been a hymn but now sounds like two cats wrestling on a zither. Still, people toss them coins. Noise is entertainment, especially when it drowns out the other, more biological street sounds. You pass a small gathering outside a temple dedicated to Mercury. A priest draped in linen that looks like it hasn't seen soap since Nero was a boy is giving a sermon about honesty in trade. The irony is not lost on the crowd, especially since half of them are pickpockets working the perimeter. You check your pouch discreetly. Still there. For now, the sun has baked the buildings into giant bread loaves. Even the marble facades of the richer parts of town are sweating. You step under an archway for some shade and lean against the wall, which is warm to the touch, too warm. You move your shoulder and squint into the street. Here comes the real show. A group of young patricians saunters by, dressed in tunics bleached beyond affordability, laughing far too loud for the joke they just made. One of them points at a passing beggar and mimics a limp. His friends roar with laughter. You consider throwing a date pit at him. Instead, you just stare. Passive judgment, it's all you can afford right now. The beggar, undeterred, continues down the road, trailing rags and pride in equal measure. He sings softly as he walks, a half-remembered battle hymn from a war that no one talks about anymore. You press on. There's a certain kind of person who thrives in this noise. You're not one of them, but you've learned to glide through the chaos, one step at a time. As you approach the next crossroad, you see a man with a cage full of mice, yes, mice. He's shouting about their miraculous powers. They ward off bad dreams, they detect poisons, they solve your relationship issues. It's unclear, but a woman is buying one, so maybe it's working. Just ahead, a bakery is drawing a line of customers. The scent of honeyed bread is unreal sweet and warm, like a hug you can chew. You want some? You really do. But your coin pouch is thin, and the last time you splurged, your landlord showed up to collect rent 2 days early. Coincidence? You think not. You veer left and enter a narrower alley, where the city feels closer walls closing in, the smell of tanning leather clinging to the air. Someone's hammering something. Someone else is muttering a prayer. A cat leaps down from a rooftop and lands beside you, so casual you'd think it had wings. You nod respectfully. The cat ignores you. Just as you start to think the chaos might quiet, a scream pierces the air. Not a horror scream, a surprise scream. A fruit cart has overturned, and pomegranates are rolling downhill like tiny, juicy projectiles. People are laughing, chasing them. One rolls near your feet. You consider grabbing it, but remember the last time you took unclaimed food in public. You still owe that old woman a new broom. Eventually, you reach the forum's edge. You're not going in too rich for your blood, but standing here, watching it all play out, feels like theater. There's a trial happening. A man stands in the center of a circle, flailing his arms and shouting about being framed. His accuser, a sharp-nosed woman, stands with arms crossed and an expression that could carve stone. The crowd loves it. Every point scored gets a cheer. Rome doesn't need lawyers. It needs drama. Historians still argue whether these open-air trials were more about justice or just public spectacle. Judging by the man selling wine on a stick to the spectators, you're leaning towards spectacle. You linger just long enough to catch the verdict guilty, with a minor penalty, 2 days of water hauling duty, and a public apology. The accused tries to make it poetic. It doesn't work. As you turn to leave, a burst of music erupts from behind you. It's Neptune Guy again, this time with cymbals. The sea shall reclaim the land, he cries. Someone tosses him a coin, not out of belief, just admiration for commitment. You shake your head, smiling despite yourself. This city, it's absurd. It's loud. It's relentless. And somehow, it's home. The city is roaring now, midday in full swing. But you, blessed be, have a short break, what passes for personal time in your very Roman, very un-air-conditioned life. And where do you go? Latrines. Yes. Public toilet. Communal. Aromatic. Surprisingly social. And just a little terrifying. You follow the scent of vinegar, sweat, and something more. Organic down a side street toward the nearest forica. The communal latrine shared by several blocks. It's built of thick stone, open to the air, with a small awning meant to provide shade. You enter with mild dread. The floor's wet, of course it is. You don't ask why. Inside, a dozen stone seats line the wall, each one a carved circle above a running water channel. No privacy dividers, no dignity. You take a seat next to a man humming a sea shanty. He nods like you're sharing a drink, not a digestive moment. You do your business quickly, focusing on a crack in the wall that vaguely resembles the profile of Emperor Vespasian, and reach for the communal sponge. Yes, that sponge, mounted on a stick, soaked in vinegar, shared with everyone. You give it a side eye. It gives nothing back. You clean up, sparingly, gratefully, lightly traumatized. The man next to you leans over and says, "I hear there's a better sponge over near the forum." You nod gravely, as if he's just shared a state secret. Historians still argue whether Romans truly shared one communal sponge or brought their own. Based on your experience, you're praying for the latter. You exit the latrine into the dazzling sunlight. Blinking, it's like being reborn. And you now appreciate clean sandals on a deeply spiritual level. You head toward your second favorite errand laundry. Not your laundry. You're not wealthy enough for that luxury today? No. This is a delivery for Claudia. Remember her, the knife-sharpening neighbor with the goat. She asked you to drop off a tunic bundle at the Falonica, Rome's version of a dry cleaner. You reach the place by scent alone. The Falonica reeks of stale urine and ammonia, the Roman solution to stubborn stains. Fullers collect urine from public jars on street corners, then soak clothes in it to lift dirt and oil. Then they stomp on them, literally, in vats, like winemaking, but deeply cursed. You walk in and immediately regret not holding your breath. The fuller behind the counter greets you with blackened feet and a cheerful, "Don't touch anything." Good advice. You hand over Claudia's tunics. He opens the bundle, sniffs them professionally, and nods. "We'll have these back by Saturn's Day. If she wants them folded, that's extra." You glance toward the back room where a man is knee-deep in a vat of swirling yellow liquid, his tunic hiked up to his knees, his expression distant, possibly meditating, possibly dissociating. Rome runs on this system, filth and ingenuity. Fullers take dirty tunics and return them whiter than ivory, often at the cost of their own noses. It's not glamorous work, but it's essential. You admire them in the same way you admire gladiators and fire watchers from a safe, odor-resistant distance. On your way out, you nearly collide with a woman carrying another load of tunics, one of which slips to the ground. You pick it up reflex and instantly regret touching it. It's damp. Somehow already smells like future mold. You wish her a good day and wipe your hands discreetly on the nearest wall. Back on the street, you seek refuge at a small fountain, rinsing your hands and arms like a man just returned from battle. The cold water jolts you awake and vaguely reminds you that you haven't had lunch. But first, one more errand. You swing by a nearby herbalist's stall run by a squat old woman with 2 teeth and a gaze that sees straight through your soul. She's got everything: dried sage, saffron, powdered snail shells good for digestion, supposedly, and a jar labeled lion grease. You don't ask. You're here for mint leaves. As she weighs your purchase on a set of brass scales, she says, "You look tired." You nod. "It's Rome." She nods back, handing over the mint in a twist of linen. Chew on this. Clears the tongue, wards off mouth demons. Mouth demons. Wonderful. You thank her and head out, chewing slowly. It's bitter. But your breath now smells like someone who might have kissed a pine cone. The streets grow hotter. A nearby fruit vendor tries to lure customers with half-price figs, but his stall is suspiciously close to a fishmonger's runoff gutter. You move on. Then you see at a bench, in the shade, unoccupied, a Roman miracle. You sit, exhaling audibly. Your legs ache. Your shoulders creak. You're beginning to develop a sunburn on the tip of your nose. Across the way, a mule stares at you, chewing disapprovingly. You rest. Just a moment. A pigeon lands nearby and starts pecking the hem of your tunic. You nudge it gently. It huffs somehow and waddles away. The city is pulsing. Around you, people argue over basil prices. A soldier tells a wildly embellished story about a battle with Germanic tribes that, based on his gestures, involved at least one bear. Children chase each other, one wielding a wooden spoon like a gladius. Someone drops a jar. It shatters. Everyone applauds. And you. You've been to the latrines, survived the Fullers, bought mint from a maybe witch, and now sit in the shade, slightly damp and marginally cleaner than before. In Roman terms, this is what victory looks like. You close your eyes for a second, not to nap, just to pause. The smell of garum wafts past. Not ideal, but you're alive. In Rome, and it's barely past midday. Your stomach reminds you, rather emphatically, that it still exists and it's not happy. The mint helped with your breath, sure, but it didn't fill the hollow in your middle where a second breakfast or maybe a first real meal should have gone. So, off you go in search of lunch, or something like it. The midday sun makes the stones underfoot sizzle. Rome at this hour becomes a city of shadows. People tuck into whatever shade they can find: shop awnings, the narrow spaces between buildings, the shadows of taller passers-by. Even dogs are melting into doorways, tongues hanging out, too tired to bark. You wipe your forehead with your tunic and try to remember if you drank enough water. You probably didn't. But your luck takes a minor turn. Ahead, there's a cart selling pulse, a kind of porridge made of spelt. It's bland. It's beige. It's nearly always too thick or too thin, and it absolutely won't win any culinary awards. But it's filling, and you can afford it. You hand over a coin, and the vendor slops a scoop into a wooden bowl. You sit on the edge of a worn stone, balancing it carefully, one bite lukewarm, vaguely nutty, and peppered with what might be rosemary or just dry weeds. You decide not to ask. You're halfway through when a thin, greasy boy with olive eyes and fast hands tries to snatch your pouch. Not today. You swat his hand away like a seasoned gladiator of lunchtime theft. He glares at you, but you give him your leftover porridge and wave him off. He scurries away, disappointed but not entirely empty-handed. Small victories. Bowl empty. You return it and stretch your legs, which is when you hear it, the rhythmic clanking of metal, the low grunts of exertion, and the occasional barked command in Latin. You follow the sounds like a bloodhound trained on testosterone and old leather, and round a corner there they are, the ludus, or gladiator training school. It's not the Colosseum. Of course, that's reserved for the real showdowns. This is just a side practice ground, a place where hopefuls train, sweat, bleed, and yell dramatically. You lean against a wall, joining a small crowd of other passers-by, watching the warriors go through drills. Two men spar in the ring, their wooden swords thudding against shields. One grunts like he's trying to scare off a bear. The other moves like he's thinking 3 steps ahead, even if his sandals say otherwise. They circle, strike, clash. No blood here, just practice. But the energy is tense, focused. A trainer, a large man with arms like tree trunks and a voice that could crumble plaster, shouts instructions. No, again, keep your elbow tucked, or it'll be sliced like a fig. Historians still argue whether gladiators were admired or pitied. They lived short, brutal lives, but many were local celebrities, adored by the crowd, honored in graffiti. You spot a few of those scribbles on the nearby walls. Marcellus Vincit, someone's carved. Below that, Marcella smells like goats, written in smaller, angrier letters. The crowd gasps as one of the trainees takes a hit and goes down hard. The trainer steps in, checks him, then claps his back. He staggers up, grinning. Blood drips from his lip, but his eyes sparkle like he just won a prize. You kind of get it. For some people, pain is proof they're alive. You stay longer than you mean to. There's something hypnotic about watching people swing swords in the heat of the day while you digest warm porridge and pretend not to envy their muscles. Eventually, the sun shifts, casting longer shadows, and the crowd thins. The trainers usher the gladiators back into the school, shouting about hydration and foot fungus. You take that as your cue to move along. You wind your way past a bathhouse where laughter echoes off stone walls and steam rises from within. Tempting. But bath time is a later luxury. Right now, the heat presses down like a wool blanket soaked in vinegar, and every breath feels like sipping broth. You spot a boy hawking chilled fruit juice for one and immediately surrender a coin. It's mostly water, but it's cold, and it's got bits of lemon. Bliss. You walk slowly now, deliberately, not because you're tired, though you absolutely are, but because moving any faster would result in you being mistaken for a melting wax statue. You pass a temple steps where 3 men in tunics argue about crop yields in Sicily and who's bribing which grain inspectors. You hear one of them say, "They're watering down the olive oil again." Another gasps, as though he's just heard a murder confession. Rome is nothing if not dramatic. You find a half-shaded doorway and lean in. Just a minute. The sun can't reach you here, and the breeze, faint as it is, stirs your tunic like a mother's breath. Somewhere nearby, someone plays a slow, mournful tune on a flute. Probably unintentional. Probably just learning. but somehow it fits. You close your eyes for a heartbeat, not long enough to nap, just long enough to forget that you've got another errand waiting. The laundry won't pick itself up. Claudia will definitely notice. And there's that cracked jug you promised to refill at the fountain. You know, the one that tried to roll down 3 floors earlier today. Your to-do list is more relentless than a debt collector. Still, in this moment, you're fed, entertained, and marginally cooler than you were an hour ago. You brush dust from your tunic, take a final sip of lemony water, and step back out into the street. Somewhere to your left, Neptune guy is back at it, now wading through a puddle and declaring the return of the sea. He's holding a fish. No one knows where it came from. You nod respectfully and continue on. It's late afternoon now, the hour where the city exhales, just a little. The sun's still high, but the intensity starts to wane. Shadows lengthen. The sounds soften, just barely. Rome, having eaten, bathed, gossiped, and argued, begins to flirt with something resembling a lull, which means nap time. Or it should be. Anyway, you return to the insula, step over someone's dropped tunic, nod to Claudia, who is inexplicably polishing a ladle like she's preparing for war, and drag your limbs up the stairwell once more. You're not even angry anymore, just resigned. These stairs have become your second job. Inside your room, it's like stepping into a clay oven. The thick heat sits in the air like an accusation. Your clay walls have absorbed every photon of sunlight and now glow gently with the heat of 1,000 regrets. You push open the shutter and pray for a breeze. You get the faintest puff, hot and indifferent. Still, you peel off your tunic. It clings to you like a needy ex, and flop onto your mattress with a groan that echoes off the walls like a dying gladiator. A nap, just 30 minutes. Just enough to reboot your brain and stop your spine from vibrating. You close your eyes, and then the goat starts. Yes, Claudia's goat. Again. It's bleeding with theatrical rage, stomping around directly outside your door. You hear a crash. Something falls over. The goat lets out a sound like someone stepped on a trumpet. You sit up. The mattress groans in sympathy, just as you're about to intervene. A chorus of children outside begins playing a chasing game, squeals, thuds. One very confident, "I am Jupiter," and now your nap has fully left the building. You lie back down, willing the city to shush. You try counting roof tiles. You try pretending you're floating down the Tiber on a quiet boat, which is wildly unrealistic given the Tiber's current smell. But whatever helps, you hum to yourself. You try focusing on the rhythmic thud of someone pounding laundry 2 floors below. It might be therapeutic if the tempo didn't keep changing like a drunk drummer. Then Claudia starts arguing with someone in the hallway. Something about missing lentils, possibly the goat again. Their voices climb, tumble, clash. You recognize the sound of clay shattering. No one screams, so you assume no one's dead. Yet, you sit up again, wipe your face with your tunic, and admit defeat. This nap is cursed. Maybe if you'd bribed Mercury earlier, you'd be sleeping now, or at least unconscious. Historians still argue whether Romans really indulged in midday naps as often as poets claimed. You're here to say they tried, but with communal walls, wooden floors, and a population that thinks shouting counts as breathing, it's mostly a dream. A very loud, fragmented dream involving goats and dishware. You shuffle to the window and gaze out. Across the alley, a woman is shaking out a rug with such vengeance it looks like she's trying to kill it. Dust flies into the air, sparkling in the light. You wave. She doesn't see you. Below, 2 men argue about plumbing. One insists the water pressure from the aqueduct is weak because of interior demons. The other says it's just a clogged pipe. They both have strong opinions and absolutely no plumbing knowledge. You mentally bet on the one with the wider stance. Somewhere a baby wails, a pot clatters, a cat yowls, probably losing a turf war to the goat. You glance around your room. It's not fancy. A cracked oil lamp, a stool with one uneven leg, a storage jar you keep your emergency figs in. but in this sweltering, chaotic moment, it's yours. You sit by the window, letting the warm air brush your face. It's too hot to think and too loud to sleep, but not unpleasant. You chew a fig dry, seedy, slightly fermented, and let your thoughts wander. You remember when you first moved in? You had a grand vision, a neat space, a tidy life, a schedule that didn't involve being chased by chickens. Instead, you got this goat neighbors, collapsing stairs, and whatever's currently dripping from the ceiling that you refuse to investigate. But weirdly, there's comfort in it. A strange, exhausted, too many noises kind of comfort. Outside, someone begins tuning a lyre. The notes wobble, stop, then start again, slightly better. Probably the teenager downstairs. He dreams of being a musician. You once told him he'd be famous one day. He said he'd write a song about your goat-related trauma. You said thanks, but please change your key signature. You lie back on the mattress one more time, body splayed like a discarded fresco. You close your eyes. The goat bleats again. You open one eye and stare at the ceiling. It stares back, somehow. Despite everything, the heat, the noise, the goat, you begin to doze. Not a full nap, not the luxurious, midday coma poets dream about, but a floaty kind of rest, where thoughts drift and your limbs forget they exist. Outside, Rome continues, clatters, shouts, the rhythm of sandals, the occasional donkey meltdown. Inside, for a few short, blessed minutes, you drift, you dream, you rest your eyes, you almost feel peaceful, until something crashes outside your door. You groan, roll over, and mutter a prayer to Somnus, the god of sleep. He does not answer. The nap, or what passed for one, is over. Not because you woke naturally, peacefully, to the gentle rustling of breeze-kissed curtains. No. You woke because someone dropped a crate of something heavy directly outside your door and followed it with a string of creative profanities in what you're pretty sure was a mix of Latin, Oscan, and sheer rage. So naturally, it's time for errands. You dress again, your tunic now vaguely resembling a damp dishcloth, and gather your pouch. It still has a couple of coins. Miraculous. Your sandals are by the door, and you give them a quick inspection for spiders or other small tenants. Clear. You slip them on and brace yourself for another round with the stairwell. Down you go. You pass the usual suspects, Claudia and her goat, now silent. Suspiciously so. The teenage lyre player plucking sadly at his strings. And the man 2 floors down who always smells faintly of onions and disappointment. He nods at you. You nod back. Mutual suffering is the language of this building. Your first stop, the Macellum, Rome's main market for food. You need a few things. A bit of olive oil if the price hasn't doubled overnight. A few dried dates. Maybe even some peppercorns if your coins stretch miraculously. The market is chaos. Not disorganized, just Roman. Tightly packed stalls. Men yelling over one another. Fish laid out on cracked marble slabs buzzing with flies and ambition. The scent hits you first: brine, vinegar, smoke, citrus, garlic, and the undeniable presence of cured meat. And people, sweating, bustling, selling, stealing. You duck under a hanging net of garlic and nearly walk into a basket of eels. Alive, writhing, the vendor laughs. Freshest in the city. You raise your eyebrows. He shrugs. Mostly, you press on. At the olive stall, a woman with biceps like amphora handles offers you a sample. You take one. It's good, salty, oily, with a sharp bite that makes your eyebrows raise involuntarily. You buy a small scoop. She throws in an extra because you flinched politely. You make your way to a spice merchant next. His table is a riot of color: saffron, cumin, mustard seed, and something he calls imported cinnamon, but you're pretty sure is just pine bark shaved fancy. Still, you grab a pinch of pepper luxury. Yes, but it'll make tonight's lentils feel like a banquet. As you leave the market, a tall man in a purple-edged tunic bumps into you and immediately accuses you of stepping on his robe, which you didn't. But now you're in it. A performance. He's got an audience. He wants attention. and probably a bribe to go away. You apologize with such exaggerated humility that even you almost believe it, and before he can spin the drama into coin, you vanish into the crowd. Rome's not about being right. It's about surviving the social calculus. Next errand weights and measures. Yes, you're headed to the local Statio Ponderaria, the little corner where officials verify the weights and measures of goods. Why? Because Claudia suspects her flour merchant is shortchanging her by mixing in sand. Again, you're her envoy. Probably because she knows you can't say no to someone holding a cleaver. The small stall is run by an old man who hasn't blinked in about 12 years. He weighs the flour you brought in, clucks his tongue, and pulls a wax tablet from under the counter. He jots something down. "Tell Claudia," he rasps. "Next time she wants justice, she should send a bribe with the flour." You nod solemnly. He waves you off. You wander toward the edge of the market now, where the goods turn more questionable. Clay pots with mysterious stains, bundles of feathers, used sandals. A man selling what he swears is certified holy water from the temple of Jupiter. In a reused wine jug, he offers you a sniff. You decline. Next, you stop by a fruit vendor and get a small bundle of overripe figs. The seller smiles with too many teeth and tosses in a bruised pomegranate for luck. You do not trust this man, but you thank him anyway. Errands mostly complete. You make your way toward the Vicus, the local street of artisans and minor dealers. You're hunting a replacement water jug. The one that tried to escape down the stairs earlier is still serviceable, but barely. You find a stall run by a woman who makes jugs, bowls, and dishes with such precise hands that watching her work feels almost sacred. You pick a medium jug. She eyes you. "That one's stable," she says, smirking. Unlike most of your neighbors, you grin. It's a low bar. You barter. She likes your goat stories. You end up with a fair deal. As you walk back, your new jug under one arm, the figs tucked in your belt, you hear music again, drums, flutes, clapping. You peek around the corner and find a small group performing a fabula, a street play, masks, broad gestures, exaggerated voices, a farce, naturally. Some ridiculous husband, a sneaky wife, a clever slave who outwits them both. You stay for a scene. It's funny, light, absurd. The audience laughs. You laugh. For a minute, the weight of the day lifts. Historians still argue whether these plays were genuine community events or just filler between actual news and punishments. You don't care. It was free and made you forget the heat. That's enough. You start the walk home. The jug is heavier than expected. The figs are squishy. Your sandals are starting to rub. But the errands are done. You climb the stairwell again, slower now. Your feet ache. Your shoulder twinges. But there's a jug in your hand and pepper in your pouch and the ghost of a laugh still in your throat from the fabula. You reach your floor. Claudia gives you a once-over. "Well," she asks. "Sand. Confirmed." You say. She nods. He'll regret it. You don't ask questions. You hand her the jug of flour, the receipt, and the bruised pomegranate for good measure. Back in your room, you place the new jug gently beside the wall. You flop onto your stool. Breathe. The city doesn't give you peace. But for a moment, it gives you completion. Evening is beginning to unfold its long golden arms across the city. Shadows stretch across the cobbles, and everything, people, buildings, pigeons, takes on that burnt amber glow like someone smeared honey over the skyline. Rome looks briefly like a painting, a loud, unwashed, wonderfully cluttered painting. You stand at the base of the stairwell, looking up at your building. The insula looms, cracked brick glowing softly in the dying sun. You sigh. You've done this climb so many times today you're starting to name the steps. The wobbly one near the third floor betrayal, that one near Claudia's goat's tether regret, the last creaking plank before your own landing despair. You brace yourself and begin the final ascent of the day. The first flight, as always, is deceptively easy. Your legs still have some spring, your jug is still light enough, and the hallway smells like grilled onions instead of mildew. Almost pleasant. The second floor is crowded. The cobbler's kids are playing with a hoop indoors. It clangs off a support beam, makes a sad metallic donk, and the kids burst into laughter. You dodge it with practiced grace. "Champion," one of them calls as you pass. You offer a tired salute. Third floor. Betrayal greets you with a familiar wobble underfoot. You lean against the wall for a second, pressing your shoulder to the warm stone. You smell lentils cooking nearby. They smell edible, which makes you hopeful for your own pot later. A dog barks, or a very grumpy child. Hard to tell these days. Fourth floor. You meet regret. Claudia's goat is tied up again, chewing a dish rag. You nod at the beast. It stares. You stare back. An ancient feud continues. Wordless, unbroken. "Looks like you're losing again," Claudia says from her doorway. Arms crossed. "It's a long war," you reply. Fifth floor. Despair squeaks under your foot as you reach your curtain. You step inside and breathe. Home. The room has cooled slightly since earlier. Not much, but enough that the air doesn't actively choke you. The jug goes into the corner. You sit on your stool and roll your ankles, one at a time. There's a sharp snap from your left foot. Possibly bone, possibly sandal. You ignore it either way. Outside your window, Rome is shifting tones. The clang of construction has faded. The salesmen are quieter now. Voices more conversational than competitive. Even Neptune guy has gone silent. A mercy. You lean out the window just slightly. Below, someone is sweeping dust into a neat pile, which is adorable considering the breeze is going to undo it in 5 minutes. A woman leads 2 children home, each holding a loaf of bread as big as their heads. They look triumphant. You glance up. The sky is soft now, more lavender than gold. A few stars are testing their shine, and across the way, the man with the toenail problem is tuning a lyre. You duck back in quickly. You prepare for dinner. Not much, just a handful of lentils, some of the pepper you bought, and the tiniest dollop of oil. You drop the lentils into your small cooking pot, add water from the jug, and set it over your tiny brazier. The coals catch. Barely. The room begins to fill with the scent of something almost delicious. Lentils and pepper, a working man's perfume. While it cooks, you tidy. You fold your tunic. You sweep a few crumbs into the crack near the wall where the ants have their tiny empire. You straighten your lucky amulet. It's hanging from a nail near the window, catching the fading light. Small blessings. Claudia knocks on the wall. 3 quick raps. The code for, "Do you have salt?" You knock back once. "No, but I have mint." Silence. Then 3 more knocks. Never mind. You grin and stir your pot. Someone 2 floors down starts singing a slow, melancholy tune that may or may not be about boiled cabbage. But it has a kind of beauty, a city lullaby. You eat your lentils straight from the pot, sitting on your stool, the bowl nestled in your lap. It's hot, filling, and the pepper hits the back of your throat like a gladiator with something to prove. You cough once, blink, and nod. It's perfect. Afterward, you drink a few sips of water, then blow out the brazier. The room dims. You sit there for a minute, eyes closed, listening. The city is quieter now. Not silent Rome is never silent, but softer. You hear sandals scuffing outside, murmured goodnights, the soft slosh of water jugs being refilled down the street. A cart rolls past slowly, its wooden wheels echoing like a lullaby through stone alleys. Your legs ache. Your back is stiff. Your fingernails are black with dust. But you're home. You've eaten. You haven't fallen down the stairs or been conned by a man selling magic olives. That's a win. You crawl onto your mattress and lie flat, arms outstretched like you've just survived a shipwreck. You have. The ship was today. The ceiling above you is crooked and cracked. A map of every storm and fire this building has endured. You find your favorite crack, the one shaped like a sleeping dog, and watch the last light fade from it. The room creaks. A soft wind nudges the shutter. From somewhere downstairs, The smell of incense wafts upward, someone's honoring their household gods. You exhale and listen to Rome fall into night. You doze a little. Not quite sleep, not quite wakefulness, just that soft, stupidly warm daze that comes after a full belly and the knowledge that nothing else today is strictly required of you. The city outside hums like a low lullaby. Not silent, of course, never that, but slower. Like Rome's just brushed its teeth and changed into a less itchy toga. Then your stomach growls again. You sigh and sit up. Of course you're still hungry. Lentils are fine and noble, but they burn quick. So here you are, peeling yourself off your mattress like a flapjack from a too-hot pan, preparing for the final ritual of the day dinner. Real dinner, or the closest you can get to it with 2 coins and an appetite shaped like Sicily. You wrap your belt again and step back outside. The stairwell feels a little kinder this time, perhaps, because you're going down instead of up. You meet Claudia coming back from the well, her arms loaded with what looks like either laundry or a very soft hostage. She grunts, "Don't fall in," you nod. You too. Out in the street, Rome is golden and flickering. Oil lamps are being lit, one by one, and they cast everything in a warm, slightly mysterious light that flatters even the chipped plaster and smog-soaked bricks. Dinner hour has begun. You follow your nose. You pass 3 options right away. First a popina with a line of tired-looking workers and a smell that screams, "We fry everything, and we're proud of it." Tempting, but the line is long and one of the benches is definitely sticky. Second, a taberna run by an older couple who seem to argue constantly but cook like gods. The scent of roasted chickpeas wafts out like a siren song. You almost stop, but the man is sweeping aggressively and you're not in the mood to dodge airborne broom bristles. Third, a little stall with a hanging sign that reads, "Garum done right." You wince. The last time you had garum there, it wasn't done right. You move on. Eventually, you end up at a cart near the public fountain where a wiry man sells bowls of wheat porridge mixed with chopped vegetables and a drizzle of garum that doesn't smell actively like betrayal. You hand over a coin. He hands you a bowl. You sit on a nearby step and dig in. It's not bad. There's some garlic in there, and maybe even a slice of dried fig. The garum is subtle, which is rare. Usually it hits you like a fish punch to the nose. You're halfway through your meal when someone sits beside you. You don't look up right away. You're focused on chewing something that might be a roasted turnip or might be a chunk of very old bread pretending to be something else. Evening. The man says, you glance over. He's got a kind face, sun-worn, with a thin scar over his eyebrow. Could be a sailor. Could be a man who got too close to a wine jug shelf during an earthquake. He nods toward your bowl. That place is new. New enough, you say. Still not sure if that's a fig or regret. He laughs. You eat in comfortable silence. Then he says, you hear about the apartment collapse over in the Esquiline. You pause mid-chew. No. Anyone hurt? He shakes his head. Only a storage room. No one inside. But still, you both fall quiet. Collapses happen. Rome builds fast, cheap and tall, especially in the poorer areas where insulae sprout like mushrooms and hold together with prayers and pigeons. You think about your own ceiling crack. The sleeping dog one. You make a note to not trust it too much. Historians still argue whether Roman building regulations were ever enforced. Based on your experience, most were enforced after something fell on someone, usually with a fine, sometimes with a shrug. Your new dinner companion finishes his food and stands. Safe night, he says. Same to you. You reply. You watch him disappear down the street and polish off your bowl. A cat eyes you from the shadows. You offer it the final fig. It sniffs, rejects. Fair enough. You return the bowl to the vendor and start walking. The sky is deep purple now, the stars shy but visible. Oil lamps flicker in doorways. Somewhere nearby, a group of neighbors sings a folk song in a slurred but charming harmony. You hear one voice falter, and then a round of laughter. It's warm, not just the air, everything. You feel it in your shoulders, your ribs, your feet. You make your way back through familiar alleys. You pass the empty amphora by the corner, still waiting for someone to trip on it. You see the graffiti near the bathhouse. Lucia loves Cassives, scrawled in charcoal. With a correction beneath it, Lucia actually loves fish. You smile. You climb the stairs. Claudia's door is shut. Her goat is asleep. You stare at it in disbelief for a moment. Its legs twitch as it dreams of doing evil. You walk quietly past. In your room, the air is cooler than before. The breeze through the shutter actually feels like a breeze now. You sit by the window with the last piece of bread you've got. It's hard, but you chew it anyway, watching the night settle. In the distance, a horn blows. Not military, probably ceremonial. Or maybe someone just got a new horn and is very excited. You close your eyes for a second and listen. Rome hums. Not loudly, not angrily, not like earlier today when it yelled about goat theft and overcooked lentils, but gently, like a lullaby played on a badly tuned flute. You finish your bread, wipe your mouth on your sleeve, and stretch. One more trip to the fountain before bed. One more jug to fill. And then, finally, you'll sleep. But first, you light your oil lamp, watch the tiny flame flicker, and give thanks to the gods, to the stairs for not breaking, and to Garum for being moderately tolerable tonight. Lamp in hand, you step back into the stairwell for your final chore, fetching water. It's dark now, or close to it. The corridor is lit only by the orange blur of your flame and the faint blue cast of moonlight leaking through a high, grimy window. You walk slowly, carefully, aware of every creak beneath your sandals. The building seems quieter at night, but not silent. Never silent. A muffled cough. The soft whimper of a child in uneasy sleep. A door creaks open somewhere above you and then clicks closed. Rome at night is a slow exhale, a city peeling off its sandals and whispering gossip through its thin walls. Down the stairs you go. This time, each step feels twice as tall. Your knees creak in protest. Your arms are still sore from today's labor. Your back slightly bent like a worn-out reed. But you carry on, because that's what Romans do. No chorus, no glory, just one more trip with a clay jug. On the second floor, a woman stands in her doorway, brushing her hair with long, slow strokes. She's humming something old, a lullaby from the hills. Maybe. You nod as you pass. She nods back, never missing a beat. There's a rhythm tonight in the insula. Not peaceful exactly, but slower, more forgiving. At ground level, the door sticks slightly as you push it open. A gust of night air brushes your face. Cool, earthy, with just a hint of smoke and last meal garum wafting in from a nearby taberna. The fountain is just across the alley, set into the side of a public building. A simple lion's head spouts water into a stone basin, its features worn smooth by generations of use and affection. You approach, set down your jug, and bend low to rinse your hands. The water's cold, blessedly so. You splash your face. Your spine straightens. The weight behind your eyes lifts just a little. As you begin filling your jug, someone else approaches, a girl, no more than 10, carrying a bucket almost her size. She grins at you, missing 3 teeth, and waits patiently as your jug gurgles full. Long day, she asks. You nod. They all are. She giggles like you told a joke. Mine too. The cat threw up in my sandal. You pause. That's unfortunate. She shrugs like a philosopher and begins filling her bucket. You lift your jug, nod to her, and start the slow walk home. Rome smells different at night. The heat has burned off the day's strongest odors. Now it's all wet stone, burned oil, laundry still drying in doorways, and distant incense, someone somewhere still honoring the lares, the household spirits, probably to keep their ceiling from caving in. You step back inside the insula, jug in hand, and start climbing. Again, each step creaks like it's personally offended. The jug sloshes. You keep it close. The idea of tripping and losing this water is unthinkable. Water isn't just water. It's cooking, drinking, washing, Living. You don't waste it. Not in this city. By the third floor, your left arm is shaking slightly. You shift the jug to your hip, rest it there, and use your free hand to steady yourself. A bat swoops through a nearby window and disappears down the corridor. No one reacts. Bats are normal. Spiders, also fine. A cat with 3 legs that knows how to open shutters, also normal. You reach your landing. Claudia's door is open a crack, just enough for her goat to stick its head out and give you the side eye. You glare at it. You sleep now. You whisper. It chews silently. You reach your own room, nudge the curtain aside, and step in. The room smells of clay and warm air and worn sandals. You set the jug down gently, stretch your arms skyward, and groan a sound that echoes off your single clay cup and makes the ceiling beam twitch with sympathy. You light a second lamp, the soft orange glow blooming out to push back the corners of shadow. You unfasten your belt. Your tunic drops in a heap. You sit on your stool and pick up your water cup. It feels heavier now, more valuable than when you left, like you've wrestled the Tiber itself into submission. You take a long sip and close your eyes, and then the drip. Plip. You freeze. Plip. Again. That sound. From the corner near the shutter, you stand, cup still in hand, and approach it like a man approaching a small, wet ghost. There it is, a slow, steady leak from the ceiling. Just a drop. But it's already pooled into a shallow dish you didn't remember setting out. You sigh. Patch number 4. You'll deal with it tomorrow, probably. Maybe. If you don't forget, or give up. You check your floor, no puddles. Good. You shift your mattress slightly to the left, just in case. Then you remember the hole in the shutter. It's not big. It lets in a little breeze and occasionally a bug. But tonight, it's letting in noise specifically. The sound of someone singing. Loudly, badly, passionately. You press your ear to the wall. It's your neighbor, again. This time it's a song about a fisherman and a very judgmental dolphin. You'd be mad, but honestly, it's catchy. You sit back on your mattress and lean into the evening. A shout from the alley. Someone yelling about a stolen tunic. A clatter of pots from upstairs. Probably that kid again. A giggle from Claudia's room. Unfamiliar. Someone's got a guest. You roll your eyes and then thump. Something hits the street below. You freeze. And then someone shouts. Sorry, Night Bucket. Ah, yes. The classic Roman tradition of dumping one's chamber pot out the window after dark. You scoot slightly farther from your shutter. Historians still argue whether Romans had formal rules about when to dump waste out the window. There's evidence of shouted warnings, but also evidence that people just did it and hoped for forgiveness. You lie back on your mattress and stare at the ceiling. The crack shaped like a dog is still there. You watch it. And finally, as the goat snorts outside your door and the lyre across the alley hits one long off-key note, you start to drift. You're just starting to dream about something nice, something involving clean water and furniture that doesn't creak like it's haunted when a shout jolts you upright. It's not an emergency shout, exactly. More like a Roman neighborhood standard volume disagreement, which is slightly quieter than a lion attack but louder than someone dropping a fruit cart. You sit up slowly, rubbing your eyes. It's coming from the stairwell. Of course it is. You throw on your tunic backward at first, because it's dark, and poke your head through the curtain. A man is arguing with someone halfway up the stairs. His words bounce off the walls with that special echo that only Roman insulae can provide. It's about firewood. Apparently someone took it, or borrowed it without asking, or looked at it weird. You listen just long enough to confirm it's not your firewood, yours is under your mattress, guarded like treasure, and return to your room, and yet sleep now seems miles away. You lie back down. Your eyes adjust to the dark. Outside, Rome is still buzzing in its own hushed, after-hours way. A cart rolls slowly past below, its wheels squeaking in a rhythm that sounds oddly musical. You hear the soft shh of someone sweeping a doorway, maybe the baker prepping for tomorrow's crusts, maybe a very methodical ghost, and then tap, tap, tap. From above, you know that sound. The upstairs neighbor's bucket is leaking again, not dramatically, just enough to make your ceiling tick with anxiety. You scoot your mattress 2 inches to the left and pretend that solves the problem. A few floors down, someone sneezes loudly. It echoes like a drum beat. You lie there, eyes wide open, arms folded behind your head, staring at the crooked ceiling beam above you, the one with the tiny nail where your amulet hangs. It turns gently in the breeze from the shutter, casting a faint, comforting shadow on the wall. Then someone laughs in the hallway, not a cruel laugh, a real one, deep and surprised. It floats through your curtain like a bubble, then disappears. You close your eyes again. You almost fall asleep, almost, and then plop. Water, somewhere, inside your room. You sit up again. You feel around blindly and confirm your worst fear: the dish under the ceiling crack has overflowed. You sigh, get up, and use your only extra tunic to mop the water. You mutter a prayer to Neptune, and maybe Apollo, and probably Mercury, just to cover your bases. Tunic wrung and dish reset, you lie back down, arms flopped out, and try to remember what sleep even feels like. That's when a baby starts crying. 3 floors down, sharp, insistent, with lungs, the kind of crying that sounds like it could wake statues. It's punctuated by a muffled voice, likely the mother trying to soothe the child with what sounds like increasingly creative threats and bribes. You smile, not out of mockery, just recognition. This is Rome, a city that breathes even at night, through cracked walls and open shutters and voices in the dark. There's movement in the stairwell again. Someone's coming home late. A soft thud of feet, a metal latch, a whispered curse as they stub a toe. You imagine the story behind it: late work, secret romance tripped over a sleeping goat. All plausible. Your body is tired. Your eyelids, finally, begin to agree. But as you start to sink into sleep again, a single, high-pitched twang slices through the night. It's the liar kid across the alley. He's practicing at night. With feeling, you fling an arm over your face, then the goat bleats. Somewhere in the building, someone shouts, "It's always the goat." You whisper to no one in particular, "Thank you." Outside, the stars blink quietly. The shutters rattle once. Rome whispers, murmurs, rolls over in its sleep. And you lie there, surrounded by it, all the cracked walls, the odd noises, the lingering smells of dinner and laundry soap, the sound of sandals and laughter and spilt water. You think about the day, the lentils, the fights, the dust, the laughter, the porridge, the failed nap, the fountain, the staircase that deserves to be cursed. You think about tomorrow and how it'll probably look a lot like today. And strangely, that thought comforts you, because in this noisy, messy, unpredictable insula, where privacy is fiction and silence is mythical, you've carved out a little rhythm, a space, a version of peace. And as your breath evens out and your muscles stop twitching, a final bucket crashes in the alley. Someone groans. Someone else applauds. You close your eyes, smiling into your mattress. Rome sleeps. And finally, so do you. Night in Rome doesn't end so much as dissolve slowly into morning. It's the kind of city where the dark never fully settles, where even at the quietest hour, something is moving, creaking, snoring, or plotting to steal a goat. But here, on the 5th floor of a groaning, lopsided insula, you sleep. Not deeply, not entirely without interruption, but enough to let the body loosen its knots and the mind wander into strange, flickering dreams. You stir once when a moth flutters near the lamp, again when the wind shifts and the shutter groans, once more when something or someone bumps into your door and mutters a hasty apology in slurred Latin, but each time, you fall back. And now, in the small hour before dawn, the air has cooled just enough for your breath to feel like fog in your chest. You roll over, face nestled into your arm, one leg draped off the mattress like a forgotten statue. The straw pokes you in 4 different places, and you don't even care. Outside, the world is paused. The alleys are still. The shouting's gone. Even Neptune guy has gone quiet. For now, a soft scratching sound comes from above. Maybe a rat, maybe the wind, maybe the teenage lyre player trying to compose a love song to the baker's daughter. The goat snores. You dream, briefly, of a city made entirely of sponge sticks and olive oil. Everyone's tunic fits perfectly. There are no stairs. And somehow, the bread is always fresh. The sky outside begins to lighten, faint at first, a silvery edge pushing back the stars. It creeps over the rooftops, slips between clay tiles, seeps through dusty shutters, and finds you lying there on your mattress. A tangle of limbs and half-dried sweat and yesterday's thoughts. You don't wake yet, but your body stirs. The building stirs, Rome stirs, and then gently, quietly it begins again. A clatter in the alley, a rooster's first test squawk, a thud of someone dropping a chamber pot lid. Your eyes flutter open, you blink, you groan. Your ceiling, still cracked, still vaguely shaped like a dog, greets you like an old friend with bad posture. You don't move yet. You lie there. Let the sounds return one by one. A broom sweeping below, a distant splash fountain or accident. You're not sure. Someone humming, someone whispering, someone already grinding grain with alarming enthusiasm. The air smells faintly of ash and barley. A baby cries, a dog barks, and somewhere a child shouts, "I am Romulus." Of course you are. You sit up slowly, bones cracking in protest, joints stiff from yesterday's errands and stair climbs and close calls with angry poultry. Your hair is sticking up in 3 directions. Your tunic, crumpled at the foot of the mattress, already smells like a rerun. You stretch, you yawn, and in the quiet between moments, you smile. You've survived another full day in Rome, a very boring, very loud, very Roman day, but in its noise, in its clutter, in its chaos, there's rhythm, there's life. There's your little space above the city-cracked walls, goat neighbors, dripping ceilings and all. You rise, pull on your tunic, touch your lucky amulet, and prepare, once again, to face the stairs. And now, as the curtain falls on your long Roman day, let's slow everything down. Imagine the insula fading into the hush of pre-dawn, its brick walls casting long, sleepy shadows as the moon gives way to a muted amber sky. The city breathes softly now. The noise has thinned into silence. Even the cobblestones seem to rest. Your room is still. The cracked shutter barely shifts in the gentle breeze. The goat, for once, silent. Even the lyre across the alley has quieted, perhaps broken, perhaps finally asleep. You lie back again, your arms resting gently by your sides, eyes closing under the last trace of lamplight. The sounds that remain are faint like whispers from another world. The creak of wood cooling, the distant splash of a fountain, the soft sweep of a broom far below. You feel the day slip from your shoulders. You let it. The stairs, the errands, the noise all behind you now. Just the rhythm of your breath, the weight of the blanket, the softness of this stillness. Picture the stars beyond the ceiling. Quiet, steady, ancient. The same ones Romans watched millennia ago. The same stars that rise now above your little room in the sky. You are small here, but not alone. The city rests with you, and so do I. So sink into the dark. Let the walls blur. Let the hum of Rome fade away. You've earned this. Sweet dreams.